the message is that one shouldn't give up. Even in bad circumstances, you can produce nice things, beautiful things.
Considering the situation they were, these people, they have the boot on top of them. They were able to be creative. They were trying to be creative, keeping their dignity.
So without this writing, I would have committed suicide, I think.
When you have those little gifts that you make out of a little button or something out of a nut or something, and you carve it and do something for a friend, it's showing your brotherhood or sisterhood.
My name is Sara De Witt. I am 66 years of age, and I was born originally in Chile, and I came to the United Kingdom in 1976, December. I was detained by the secret police during the dictatorship of Pinochet in Chile. I was finishing my social work training, and I was detained in April 1975.
I came here as a refugee in 1976, and after being imprisoned for 13 months in Chile, I was one of the lucky people who survived the Pinochet dictatorship, and also who arrived in England at a time when refugees were welcome.
Yeah, I came with my eldest daughter, who was only, when I was taken prisoner, she was 2 months old. When I left, she was just over 2. When I was freed by the government without charge.
One day I was detained, and I was interrogated, I was tortured. They wanted to know information about my students, because at that time I used to teach at the university. I was a tutor.
I was a supporter of Allende, and of course I was a member of the political party in Chile, which is called the MIR. I joined the resistance. So we decided. We were young. 1973, I was only 21 years old. Most of the people who were organized in that network were also arrested. And were more than arrested, we were kidnapped.
The reason why I came to the UK, although I didn't want to come here, was because I was taken into prison in Chile in September 1974, and the only way that I could be out of prison if I leave the country.
When President Allende was elected, I supported his election. I wanted some changes in my country. After the coup in 11 September 1973, I managed to survive until the 3rd of January 1975 on the underground, when I was arrested. We were detained under something called a stage of siege. We didn't have trials. We were never accused of anything. So you just didn't know what you didn't know, whether you could be taken, and some people were taken back into Villa Grimaldi to be tortured again, whether you could still disappear. You just never knew what was going to happen.
I was a member of opposition to the dictatorship. I took the decision to fight for the restoration of democracy. In total, I was 44 days in a center of detention and torture.
I was lucky in a way that they didn't have much of my story when they caught me and put me in prison. I was taken and was very badly tortured. with electricity and blows and all that.
The Venda sexes, which were the two places where really people were subjected to torture most of the time, were certainly very obscure places and horrible places to be. But certainly in Venda Sexy, where I was for about 2 weeks, was the whole issue of using sexual torture with women.
Physically, there was overcrowding. Some prisoners were not necessarily doing very well emotionally, so it was also that was something, a worry, you know, when one of our comrades was looking depressed or feeling unwell. So we all tried to help each other to pull through.
Although in the day we were all subjected to torture, really, in the evenings, these people were going home as if there was an office day, and we would spend those hours playing games, telling each other stories, making up stories.
Tres Álamos was the place, it was a place in Santiago where the people, the political prisoners that have been acknowledged as such were there, because quite a number of political prisoners were killed and disappeared before reaching that place. That was a place of sort of refuge for me. When I arrived there, I had passed through the different centers of torture. So I went there and I met a number of women. And that was the place where I remained for the next 2 years with many, many other women. I think that probably at some time we were nearly 300. We were trying to look strong, you know, especially against the people, the police who were monitoring our place of detention. We were continually harassed, and that, you know, was easy to undermine people.
I remember a lot of things about it. You will never forget your experience. You know, if you are in those concentration camps, you will never forget. Yeah. When I arrived there, they put us in a cell, which probably was 1 meter, you know, and in that direction 1 meter wide and 1.5 meters long. That's all, and about 2 meters high. That's the place, and 4 people in that place, right? So that was the closets. You know, it was really a closet there.
The building was a really old building. At that time, it was in process of to be demolished. So half of the prison was almost, you know, rubble. So there were only some cells. We were put inside about 8-10 people sometimes, with no bed, just you know, some mattress and blankets. That's all.
It was an awful place where they sent us in this Santiago prison, women prisoners. The mattresses were absolutely rotten with urine. Impossible. So the first decision we made was to burn all these rotten mattresses.
Obviously, it wasn't the best, you know, very good condition. And food-wise was also, we had a lot of problems with, like, teeth, for example, because we weren't being fed properly. We will have just tea or, you know, a big thing of tea and hot milk in the morning with some bread.
The food wasn't very good. It lacked all sort of nutrient. And what we have, when our relatives were coming to see us, they were bringing us some food. And we centralized the food. Everybody was getting a ration, but for example, there were some women who were pregnant. We have someone with leukemia. Some people have other, you know, conditions. So for example, those women who were pregnant, we were tending to give them the eggs. We didn't have many eggs, but they would have some eggs.
There were wonderful leaders. They are natural leaders. And women are very, 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 very good for organizing themselves. In a few days, We had everything organized, how to clean the place, to keep it clean, to maintain it clean. And people were very good at following this. We organized classes, we study languages, because some of us knew that we have to leave the country. So there were English classes, French classes, German classes, and history classes, and other things, even mathematics.
We had what we call a taller laboral, like a workshop where we used to make from shoes to dresses, variety of things, and then we could also sell to some of the relatives that would go and use that money to buy basic things that we needed for many of our compañeros whose families were not able to visit them, or who were from outside Santiago, that they couldn't really go every week.
That was extraordinary, because to begin with, we're just doing it just to keep ourselves occupied and to send something outside and learn new skills while we were in prison.
It wasn't facilitated in the way that they were giving us tools or anything. We were just doing it. And it was facilitated in the sense that they were allowing us to take the merchandise once the product were finished. Yeah, they were us allowing to do that. But with quite a lot of harassment to the people that were coming to get them. There were people mainly from human rights organizations, La Vicaría and so on. And we were passing them the merchandise.
I made a cardigan with what we call lana virgen, like wild wool. I haven't ever been able to do any knitting in my life before. I had to take lots of lessons from people who knew what they were doing, and it's a complete cardigan with a zip, and it's like a hoodie really, something like that. Obviously it's over 40 years old, the zip bit is rusty. I don't know, I just kept it for sentimental reasons. It even got some few holes by now. I haven't worn it for years and years, but it was something that I was very proud of.
The basic unit where everybody do things, particularly in regard to the craft, was La Carreta, because at that place you met with a carpenter which is being arrested, or you met with a doctor which is being arrested, or you met with a student. So it was a mixture of everybody there, right? And everybody had different skill. From the very beginning in Tres Álamos, people were already asking their relatives to bring wool, to build looms, small looms, very small loom, or to build, to bring coins, which were very easy to mold and to do different type of craft. You have to take all the coin, and make it flat, right, and then engrave. And we use very simple tools to do that. So small files, you cut it in, you just break the file, and because these files are steel, so you use the file to do the engraving. So you can do beautiful figures on the coin, and you put it on the cigarreras.
The camp is full of noises when people are working. There are people working with metals, with silver coin, flatten them to make rings, to make medals, medallions.
Sometimes during lunch, if you were lucky, we got some meat. The most part of this meat was bones. So we use that to make objects like hammers, doves, star. With a kind of knife, we carve the bone very carefully. We got a lot of time, so we weren't worried about the time. So just doing that whole day almost.
When I got hold of the stone, I did a lot of work in the kind of jewelry for my sisters, and for my mother I make some figures in copper, the good thing of concentrating in something that you want to achieve and you are putting the mechanical sort of effort in doing something, it helps you to forget the situation that you are in. One problem is that there is a constant psychological pressure that you put yourself, because you start elaborating situation of what's going to happen with you, what's going to happen with. But when you are concentrated in doing something with details and time consuming and all this stuff, you concentrate so much that you alleviate your mind, and then you feel after that you have sort of have a break from that.
I was an embroiderer. You know, some women, the creating of patterns, some women, the sewing of the blouses. I was one of the ones who embroidered the blouses. I used to think it was my therapy. It allowed me to relax, to think about my life and to think what I would like to do in the future if allowed, and so on. So in that sense, it was a way of, it made me feel more resilient, more stable.
Personally, I am not very good with my hands, so I am more the intellectual than labor by hand. But I did things that later they told me that the university parish church organized exhibition with my work, because they were from my university and people recognized me, and so they saw the little things I did. I did weaving, I did work in leather. It's a way of communicating to the exterior in Chile and abroad that this work were made by political prisoners, and that allows you to talk about the dictatorship, talk about what was going on in Chile, was the repression, how the people were disappearing, were executed.
I had time, for the first time from my detention, to think about what was happening to me. And I realized that I was a witness. For some reason, history is very important to me. And I realized that I had perhaps one day to write about what I was seeing. I would close the door and I would start writing in a small little pieces of paper, and I would hide them inside. I would dismember a cigarette, and I would put it inside, and then put some tobacco in, and topping with some tobacco. And I passing this to my mother during the visit. When I left prison, I asked a guy from the International Red Cross to take all these pieces of paper out of the country in a diplomatic valise. And they were torturing children, mother. They were stretching their bones, mother, and giving them electric shocks, mother, hour upon hour, mother. Interminably ages, then ages again, mother. And their shrieks were all round me, mother, and to blackest black, to demented were, mother, whittle giddy with grief. And I cried as I have never cried before, mother. I cried in a frenzy, mother, desperate to my last fibre, mother. And the children scream in more and more anguish, mother. And I cry, mother, and I will never cry again as long as I live.
experience that we live in the concentration camp is something that has marked my life. And many of the compañeras I met there I still see today here in Chile. And there is a tremendous bond.
It's very nice, to remember what we were able to do in those circumstances. And most of the objects have a strong meaning in that sense, and also they have a very strong political meaning.
It's a passage to communicate a message with something physical, that an object can say what the person who did this underwent torture, survived, was witness of our comrade disappearing.
It was our way of showing that we had not been defeated, and our way of, it was our only weapon that we had to show that we had survived, and that we probably will continue what we were thinking.
But they are very intimate, because people, if they take something made of a little piece of wood or leather or something, it has no value if you're going to sell it, but it has an enormous value for whoever made it and who received it.
Some of our children are becoming interested, and showing more, I wouldn't say commitment, but showing more an interest about how can we, preserve them, how can we keep them.
I feel quite proud of what I've achieved in my life. I even feel very proud that I did knit that cardigan. It was a tremendous achievement. I feel very honoured as well of having been given a chance to survive with my cardigan. We're going to have more holes by the time I die and all that, but hopefully my daughters will keep it and they will show it to the grandchildren and say, this is what your grandma did one day when she was in prison. And she was very proud of it.
As far as I know, this is one of the largest collection of objects made during the dictatorship in concentration camps. Not only shows the huge trust that Creator has put on us to lend the object, but also how 45 years now since the coup d'etat, this issue is still arising quite a large interest. I have kept my blouses. They accompany me to exile, and whenever I see the blouses, I remember a situation so hard like that and show that I can survive, so anyone else can survive a horrendous situation and keep on living.